Hey everyone. So, before I get started, I know you all are probably thinking, what's going on? Where am I? Why am I not in my usual spot? What is this? Is this some sort of a new thing about me? Have I moved out? Is there a something that you all should know? Am I changing? What's happening here? Nothing. It's just a different room. Okay, it's the same house, it's just a different room. I decided to do this time. Why? Well, who knows? Just different setting and everything. What about more so I got bored, okay? I'm not going to be saying that I'm going to be doing my videos in this room from now on. No, I am going to go back to my old room again. But for this video, I decided to change it up because I got bored of something. Now, it is pretty easy to get bored of where you stay at. Like in your own bedroom, for instance. When I first moved into the house, my bedroom was nice. I loved it. I loved the space. I loved the carpeting. I loved it. It looked so nice. It was downstairs on like the bedroom at my old house. It was a nice little bedroom. But as the years went by, I've gotten so used to it that the excitement really went away. And that is common for a lot of real life things. You get excited for it at first, but you get bored of it when you overstate your welcome from all the excitement. But anyway, what about with movies? And that's what this video is about. I decided to think about it more, and honestly, is there a chance that maybe I can get bored of such a movie? And more so, it's easy to get bored of movies that have that problem with getting bored of it. It's like a bad movie, for instance. Because, a movie that you really don't want to like or just don't like is, quite frankly, pretty easy to get bored of. You get bored of a movie that you may have found hilarious as a child, but as you grow older, you realize the jokes don't really hit the same at your age. But what about with some of the greatest movies you can imagine? Like with me, for example, I've shared with you all tons of times my all-time favorite movies. And what if I said that maybe, or maybe not, there's a chance that I could get bored of watching them? I'm not saying that's for certain, but let me just say this. Can I really criticize them for that? Like, because of how many times I've watched these movies and how much there is to it, can I really get bored of them? Or at very least, can I criticize them for getting bored of them? Let me kind of go ahead and gloss through this in three different ways and see exactly what this is all about. Now, to put it simply, getting bored of a movie usually implies that you've seen it so many times. And naturally, yeah, that's the case. You get bored of something when you've seen it way too much. Now, in that case, so what if you were able to quote an entire movie word by word? If I'm being honest, I don't think there's a movie out there that I can do that with. There might be, actually, I don't know. Some of the more kid movies out there I've seen a lot of, but do you know any movie out there that you're actually able to say word to word of? A movie that you know by heart to the point where you can literally quote it entirely? Like, you can just describe the entire movie in every line that's said. I know there have been times out there where that's the case. We all had those movies out there that we're able to recognize by saying every line of. Now, do I have any movies like that? Top of my head, it's kind of hard to think, but I can be honest, I could have the case with that Simples because there are movies out there that I have seen lots of times, and maybe I can't say 100% I can quote an entire movie. There are movies that I am very, very close to being able to. For instance, the Toy Story movies. I've seen those, or at least the first three, I've seen those three movies so many times. And granted, I probably can't say every single line exact from those movies. I can say a lot to them. So, like, maybe, I don't know, 2 or 5 of the lines in the movie I can't really remember entirely, but a majority of them I can. So, if you're able to recognize an entire movie's dialogue, if you knew all of it, does that mean you get bored of it? Well, I guess it really more so depends on, I don't know, what do you remember everything that goes for it? Like, even though you know the dialogue, will that really bother you? Even though you're probably able to just say the movie mouth it, I mean, is that really something to be upset about? Because honestly, if you're able to understand the entirety of the lining, if you could know every line, will you get bored? More so, it depends, I guess. I don't know. I guess it more has to do with what is it that you like about. Do you like? Is there something about the dialogue that you like? Is there a reason you remember it? Do you remember it because you've seen the movie so much, or do you remember it because there's something about it that makes it so memorable to you? Either way, it matters because if you remember it because it had that meaning, then it really isn't something you can get bored of. Because there's you remember it because of the excitement that surrounded it. Okay, you remember the line because there was something to it that made it memorable, and so that reason, yeah, you can't really get bored of it because you know that memory from how unique it was. But if you remember the line because you've heard it so many times, can you get bored of it? I mean, I don't really know if I could say for much. Cause did I ever get bored of the lines in the movies that I watched? Because, like I said, I don't think there's a movie out there that I can quote the entirety of, but there are movies where I'm very close to doing so. Do I get bored of them? Like, do I get bored of having so much dialogue recognized? Uh, you know, really, it's kind of hard to say. But to be entirely honest, not really much, no. Even though even though I do have a lot of words in these movies to remember, even though, but I honestly just think that movies can generate into all different types. There are really long movies out there. I think it's more so with the shorter movies that have the easy dialogue to remember, like very short ones, like under half an hour and a half. Those are the movies that are easiest to recognize through every line of dialogue. Any movie that's about, I don't know, 2 hours or more are a lot harder to quote entirely. If you can do it with something, then that's impressive, but it's easier to do it with the movies that are about an hour and a half. And it's easy because they're not as long. So, you don't have too much to work off of. So I think that's a good factor to it. And I think that means you can't really get bored of the movie because the only reason you're able to recognize all the dialogues because it wasn't as long as most other movies, and it's so short you're able to watch it enough times because of how short it is. I think more so you watch movies enough multiple times because they're shorter. It's more, to me personally at least, the most movies I've seen are the shorter ones. Not saying I have only seen longer 2 hour movies, like less than two times. No, I have seen, like the Star Wars movie, for example, they're over 2 hours, and I've seen them constant times. But if we're talking about movies that I can explain every line of dialogue of, it is more so with the shorter ones. And because they're short, they're easier to rewatch and they're easier to dialogue for. So I can't really say you should blame your boredom on those dialogues because you can't get bored of something based on the dialogue you read. You just, you know what they're saying, so you just gotta see how it plays out and realize that, it's a fun thing to learn. You can always do it with more movies if you want. If you feel like it, you can try to quote the entire movie word by word, maybe for a project or something, but it just runs someone's own mind. Now, another thing that you can recognize when watching a movie so much is coming up with your own little stuff to think about. I don't know if it's just me who does this, but whenever there's a movie I watch that I've already seen so many times, if I'm watching it again, I usually like to come up with new random crap to talk about, whether it's, being funny with your bro you're watching with, or making some funny little commentary of yourself, doing like a mystery science theater thing. I kind of like to do that with movies that I've already watched a lot. Whenever there's a movie that I'm about to watch for like the 20th time, I usually just say whatever I feel like saying. Say something funny, Go with something funny. Bring up something fun if you're watching it with someone. Kind of, to add new flavor to it, Because, since you already know it so much, you're adding your new stuff to it. Is that a problem? Is it bad to add some new fun something to a movie that you're supposed to love? Can you love a movie but also say a lot of funny stuff about it, you can, yeah. Even though, you can be funny with it, you can point out errors, you can point out little goofs or whatever. It doesn't mean the movie you're watching has grown out. It doesn't mean you've grown out of it. There is not a single movie out there that is flawless. You could say all you want, oh, this movie has no problems. I can't think of a single flaw with the movie. Every movie out there's got something to talk about. There's no movie without goofs. And, they're movies, they're long, they can be hard to process, so even the greatest movies out there can have the little bit of goofs. As much as you want to defend them, you got to admit, there's got to be something to it that you aren't eye to eye with, okay? It may be the littlest thing, but it is what it is. But anyway, I don't really think it's as much I get bored of a movie or I want to go against it when I'm saying random funny stuff with it, when I'm pointing out trivia, when I'm talking over it, When you talk over a movie, does that mean you're not interested in it? Well, it more so means that you kind of want to expand your love to it. That's kind of what some people do when they like to be funny with a movie. They expand the enjoyment they have with it. When a movie can come up with something fun, you either can enjoy it, I guess depending on what the context is for, whether it's coming up with new material, that's good, or it's, laughing at something that really is bad, because you can do that. You can laugh at movies that are terrible at what they do, or you can laugh at something you think of because of what you watched in the movie. When you do that, that's a good thing to focus on. If you're laughing at something that the movie comes up with, then yeah, you can criticize them for that. But if you're laughing at something that you think of while watching the movie, that's a good new compliment for it, even if the only reason you do it is because you don't really care too much to just watch it with a straight face, you can really still find lots of joy to interacting with people. Whether it's, interacting with other people to, I guess, share the fun with it, or if you're just watching it by yourself, you can talk to yourself, say funny stuff to yourself, and know that you're not doing that because you're bored. You're doing it because you really want to see what fun stuff this movie gives to you. Gives you some fun stuff to work off of, adds good flavor. And yeah, you could say that to yourself, but then realize you're bored of it. But really, when you got that, it's always good to have that good stuff to say. Maybe it could annoy people who are watching it for the first time, but when it's with people who have seen the movie as much as you have, you don't have to think of it as you getting bored. You can think of it as you really liking to share the process. So maybe it's just like a little thing to talk about and say instead of saying you're bored of the movie, but you really can't get bored of a movie if you do still have a lot of good stuff to say with it. Now, what about the big thing that there is when you get bored of a movie? If you even want to watch it again to begin with. Because, yeah, what if there is the case? There could be a case where you are bored of a movie to the point where you don't even know if you want to watch it again. Like, what if I, at some point in my life, had to choose if I want to watch Toy Story again? Like, if I was at school or somewhere and they said, hey, you want to watch a movie with me? And I was like, okay, sure, what do you want to watch? And they're like, ooh, you want to watch Toy Story? Would I say no because I've already seen the movie so many times? Well, if I'm going to be honest, I probably would. And, there probably would too. If you already know the movie so much, you would say no to it. So, does that mean you're bored of the movie? Well, you can, honestly, yeah. But now, I'm just going to put this out right here. Yeah, you actually can get bored of watching a movie. But the key word is getting bored of watching a movie. Can you get bored of a movie in general? Like, can you dislike a movie because you've gotten bored of it? Now, that you can't really say. It is possible to get bored of a movie since you've already watched it so much. Yeah, I can do that. There's a difference between getting bored of watching a movie and getting bored with a movie. Getting bored with a movie is when the movie drags on or is like long or has something to it that's really boring, and that you can criticize the movie for. But when you're just bored of watching it, that mostly just means that you want to explore new movies out there. There's a lot of great movies you haven't seen yet. You want to, take your experience out to see other stuff. You don't want to waste all your knowledge on just one movie you've already seen enough times. Because that is what I've done a lot. When I was a child, I always picked a couple of movies and watched them over and over again. But now that I'm older, I am starting to expand more with more movies to watch. I haven't really been doing a lot of rewatching recently. I've really just been expanding my watch to find more and more movies out there because regardless of how many movies I've already seen, there are still a lot more out there that I really want to check out. And yeah, that kind of means that I kind of want to leave the movies I've already seen to just be part of the memory I have of them. And when I've seen a movie so many times, those are the kind of movies, especially, I really don't feel like watching it. Why is it though? Well, because you want to remember it. That's the thing. Being good at talking about movies is knowing how much you can remember from it. And when I go out discussing movies, whether with friends or on YouTube for the hell of it, I want to make sure I know everything I got about it. And if there's ever a time where I do have to know it fully, like I have to know it really well, then I would watch it enough times till I know it well. So, yeah, essentially, yeah. The thing is, in conclusion to all this, getting bored of a movie is possible, but it's not something to be ashamed about. Because you know that there's a lot of movies out there you have to watch, and you can't really get too ashamed of getting bored of a movie that you love so much because the only boredom that you could be ashamed with is the boredom that you get from watching a scene of a movie. And if you only get bored because you've seen a movie so many times, that's okay. That kind of boredom is nothing to be ashamed about. It's nothing to get upset with the movie with. Because that just means you know so much to it. You're more just bored to continue watching it. That just means you're ready to look at more great movies out there. And yeah, that's just what I want to say. I just want to point out that you can get bored of cases, but the only kind of boredom for a movie that you can get upset with the movie for is the boredom that you just experience when the movie's playing. If the boredom comes from when you have to decide if you want to watch the movie again or not, then that really isn't a boredom that you can really be too messed up with. You can only get boredom to be upset with when you're actually watching the movie. But if you still in but if you still know about if you still pay attention if you're paying attention to the movie or at least have a good intention with what's happening in the movie, then that's not something that can be bored with, you know? You only need to worry about if you're bored with what goes on in a movie. You don't need to worry about if you're bored with if you want to watch a movie again or not. Did I make myself clear? No? Well, too bad. I'm tired. I just need to make sure. I needed a video to post this weekend, so I had to think of the most random idea that came to my mind. And that's good. I wanted to share that. I wanted to share my thoughts of getting bored of a movie, if it's something to criticize a movie for or not. And in conclusion, no. If it's a movie you've watched so many times, and that's the reason you're bored of it, that's not a problem. Okay? That doesn't mean anything bad for the movie. It just means you're ready to look at more stuff. If you're bored of a movie because of how boring the movie is, then sure, yeah, you can criticize the movie all you want for that reason, but it is what it is. And I do have my fair share of movies that you all love that I kind of get bored of because I'm not as open minded as you mature people are, so too bad. See ya. I'm done. I have no more to say. Bye.